The cursor blinked mockingly at Maya as she stared at the empty discussion thread, her trembling fingers hovering over keys that felt heavier than the textbooks, crushing her spirit. The forum's header read Sleepless Souls, 3 a.m. support group, and beneath it, a single active thread glowed. Anyone else drowning tonight? Maya Chen pressed enter before she could second-guess herself, watching her message appear in the digital void at 3:47 a.m. Her dorm room felt like a tomb of medical textbooks and empty energy drink cans. 3 years into medical school, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd slept more than 2 hours consecutively. Her body had become a stranger, running on caffeine and anxiety. Her mind a carousel of anatomical diagrams and patient case studies that never stopped spinning. The response came faster than expected. Ethan Insomniac _87. Drowning is an understatement. I'm somewhere past the ocean floor at this point. Maya found herself smiling for the first time in weeks. She typed back quickly, her fingers finally finding their rhythm. Mayam _03. What's keeping you up, if you don't mind me asking? Ethan Insomniac _87. Corporate quarterly reports and the existential dread that comes with knowing I'll be staring at spreadsheets until I die. You Mayam _03. Medical school, and the crushing realization that I might be too broken to help anyone else heal. What followed was an exchange that lasted until sunrise. Ethan Turner, 28, corporate executive at a Fortune 500 company, hadn't slept properly in 6 weeks. His days blurred together in conference rooms and client calls. His nights spent staring at his bedroom ceiling, calculating quarterly projections and wondering when his life had become a series of profit margins. Maya shared her own spiral, how she'd entered medicine to save lives, but now questioned whether she could even save herself. The weight of other people's pain had settled into her bones, and every patient case study felt like another stone in her backpack. They discovered shared music tastes, the kind of melancholy indie tracks that soundtrack for AM introspection. Ethan created a collaborative playlist titled Songs for the Sleep-Deprived Souls, and Maya added haunting melodies that matched their collective exhaustion. Ethan Insomniac _87. Do you ever feel like you're watching your life happen to someone else? Mayam _03. Every single day, like I'm sleepwalking through someone else's nightmare. Their conversations became a nightly ritual. While the world slept, Maya and Ethan built a sanctuary in their shared insomnia, trading stories, fears, and the kind of raw honesty that only emerges in the vulnerability of sleepless nights. By the end of week 2, they'd graduated from forum messages to private chats. Ethan would send her pictures of his empty office building at 2 a.m., fluorescent lights humming over abandoned cubicles. Maya would share photos of her anatomy textbooks, splayed across her unmade bed, highlighting markers, bleeding into coffee stains. Ethan Insomniac _87. I've been thinking, maybe insomnia isn't just about not sleeping. Maybe it's about being awake to see all the things we're usually too busy to notice. Mayam _03. Like what? Ethan Insomniac _87. Like how lonely most people are. Like how we're all just pretending to have our lives together during daylight hours. Maya stared at his message, feeling something shift in her chest, a warmth she hadn't experienced in months. 3 weeks into their digital friendship, Maya suggested video calls. I need to see that you're real, she'd typed, immediately regretting the vulnerability in her admission. The first call was awkward, 2 exhausted faces blinking at each other through laptop screens, the blue light of their devices casting shadows under their sleepless eyes. Ethan's hair was disheveled, his tie loosened around his neck like a noose he'd partially escaped. Maya wore an oversized hoodie, medical textbooks creating a fortress around her on the bed. You look tired, Ethan said, then immediately laughed. God, what a stupid thing to say to someone in an insomnia support group. Maya's laugh was hoarse, but genuine. You look like you haven't seen sunlight in weeks. That's because I haven't. Their video calls became the highlight of their sleepless nights. Sometimes they'd work in comfortable silence, Maya studying, Ethan reviewing presentations. Their screens split between video chat and their respective hells. Other nights, they'd talk until dawn painted their windows pink, sharing childhood, memories and dreams they'd abandoned for more practical pursuits. "I used to want to be a photographer," Ethan admitted during one 4 a.m. conversation, his voice soft with exhaustion. "Travel the world, capture moments that mattered." "What happened?" Maya asked, though she already knew the answer. "Life, bills, the practical voice that tells you art doesn't pay rent." He rubbed his eyes, leaving red marks around his temples. "What about you? What did Maya want to be before she wanted to save the world?" "A writer. I wanted to tell stories that helped people feel less alone." She gestured at her textbook mountains. "Turns out, I'm not very good at either writing or helping people feel less alone." "You helped me," Ethan said quietly, "these past weeks. I don't know how to explain it, but I don't feel like I'm disappearing anymore." Maya felt her breath catch through pixelated video and delayed audio. The stranger had become her anchor in the darkness. They began sharing more intimate details. Maya told him about the panic attack she'd had during her last clinical rotation, how she'd hidden in a hospital supply closet for 20 minutes, hyperventilating between boxes of latex gloves. Ethan described the morning he'd found himself crying in his car in the corporate parking garage, unable to remember why he'd gotten out of bed. "Do you think we're broken?" Maya asked one night, her face illuminated only by her laptop screen. "I think we're human," Ethan replied. "Maybe being broken is just part of the package." As dawn approached during their 7th week of friendship, Ethan made a suggestion that terrified them both. "I have a conference in your city next month," he said, his voice carefully casual. "Maybe we could, I don't know, get coffee? See if this thing translates to real life?" Maya's cursor blinked in the text box for several minutes before she typed, "I'd like that. But I'm scared." "Of what?" "That in real life, without the buffer of screens and delayed responses, you'll see how broken I really am, that the person you've been talking to only exists at 3 a.m. Ethan was quiet for so long that Maya thought the call had frozen. Finally, he spoke. "Maya, what if we're both broken? What if that's exactly what makes this work?" The coffee shop Maya chose was deliberately impersonal, a chain restaurant with harsh fluorescent lighting and the kind of ambient noise that made intimate conversation impossible. She arrived 30 minutes early, ordering and reordering drinks she was too nervous to consume, checking her phone obsessively for messages from Ethan. When he walked in, she almost didn't recognize him. In daylight, without the softening filter of laptop screens, Ethan looked older, more fragile. His suit hung loosely on his frame, and the dark circles under his eyes were more pronounced than pixels had revealed. He looked like what he was, a person barely holding himself together. Maya waved from her corner table, suddenly hyper-aware of her own appearance. She'd chosen her clothes carefully, jeans and a sweater that hid how much weight she'd lost, makeup that concealed the exhaustion etched into her face. But under the restaurant's unforgiving lights, she felt exposed. "Maya?" Ethan's voice was different in person, rougher around the edges. They sat across from each other, and the silence stretched uncomfortably. All their carefully cultivated digital intimacy seemed to evaporate in the space between them. "This is weird," Maya said finally, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "You're real," Ethan laughed, but it sounded forced, disappointingly so. They ordered food neither of them wanted, and made conversation that felt stilted compared to their flowing 3 a.m. dialogues. Maya found herself second-guessing every word, analyzing Ethan's expressions for signs of disappointment. He seemed to be doing the same, his responses careful and measured. "I feel like I'm performing," Maya admitted after an hour of polite small talk. "Like I'm trying to be the person you've been talking to, but I can't remember who that is in daylight." "I know what you mean," Ethan said, relaxing slightly. "It's like we created these versions of ourselves that only exist in the dark, and now we're trying to make them work in fluorescent lighting." Maya studied his face, the way stress had carved lines around his eyes, how his hands trembled slightly when he lifted his coffee cup. In person, his exhaustion was palpable, a weight he carried in his shoulders, in the way he moved through the world like it took too much effort. "Can I tell you something terrible?" she asked. Ethan nodded. "I almost didn't come today. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, convinced that meeting me would ruin whatever we'd built, that you'd see me in real life and realize I'm not worth losing sleep over." "Maya, Ethan's voice was soft, the same tone he used during their late-night video calls. "I'm so tired, Ethan, not just from not sleeping, but from pretending to be okay, from trying to become someone who can save other people when I can barely save myself. And I'm scared that if you really knew how broken I am, how close I am to giving up on everything, you'd run." Tears were streaming down her face now, and she didn't care that other customers were staring. The dam she'd built around her emotions had finally cracked, and everything was pouring out. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. His palm was warm, real, solid in a way that screens could never convey. "I wake up every morning wanting to quit my job, my life, everything," he said quietly. "I spend my days making rich people richer while my soul dies a little more each hour. I haven't called my parents in 3 months because I can't stand to hear them ask how I'm doing. I cry in bathroom stalls and pretend it's allergies." Maya looked up at him, seeing her own exhaustion reflected in his eyes. "The only reason I haven't completely given up," Ethan continued, "is because every night at 3 a.m., I know you'll be there. In that forum, in our chats, in our calls. You've become the light I navigate toward when everything else goes dark." They sat in the coffee shop until it closed around them, talking with the same raw honesty that had drawn them together in cyberspace. The awkwardness faded as they remembered who they were to each other, to people who had found sanctuary in shared brokenness. Walking to their cars, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in months: hope. Not the forced optimism she'd been trying to manufacture, but genuine hope that maybe being broken wasn't the end of the story. "What happens now?" she asked as they reached her car. "I don't know," Ethan admitted. "I still have a job that's killing me, and you still have medical school. We're still the people who can't sleep, who don't know how to fix ourselves." But Ethan smiled, and for the first time since she'd known him, it reached his eyes. "But maybe we don't have to fix ourselves alone. Maybe broken people can help, hold each other together." Maya felt tears threatening again, but this time they weren't born from despair. "I'd like to try, if you want to." "I want to," Ethan said simply, "even if we're too tired to do it perfectly." They made plans to meet again the following week, and the week after that. Small steps toward building something real in daylight, something that could exist beyond the blue glow of their screens. As Maya drove home, she realized that for the first time in months, she felt tired in a good way. The kind of exhaustion that comes from being genuinely seen and accepted. Maybe that was what healing looked like, not fixing everything that was broken, but finding someone willing to sit with you in the wreckage and help you sort through the pieces. That night, she slept for 4 hours straight, the longest stretch she'd managed in weeks. And when she woke at 3 a.m., instead of panic, she felt something new, the quiet comfort of knowing she wasn't alone in the darkness anymore. What do you think? When two people are struggling with their own mental health challenges, can they realistically provide the support and stability each other needs? Or does love require at least one person to be in a healthier place, to create a foundation for healing together?